Oh my goodness.
It's okay.
Hey, we're on. Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and Crafting Circle with the kitty. Catherine just had to run and turn off the timer super quick. And yes, we're a little late. Yay! Okay, so go ahead and connect to the stream by going to Twitter at #YarnItAll.
Wait.
Or...
This is not a good idea. Okay.
Or go to Reddit r/SpinAYarnLive into this episode's discussion thread and let us know what crafting you're going to be working on. Hey, Punham! Hi! 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 Are you gonna let us do a stream?
Nope.
Oh my goodness, this one. So, I'm still working on Season 2's project. Oh my goodness, threads everywhere. You can probably start getting an idea of what's going on up there.
Why would you push my arm? I'm trying to pour things.
So we're doing that. We are in a new location today because it is cold outside and we want to sit by the fireplace. So you may hear the crackling of fire behind the...
Behind the microphone. It's right there. I bet you can hear it.
Yeah, it looks like it's making some noise. I have the microphone set to only pull from this side, but of course, it's going to pull from where it hears and there's echoes and all that. Anyways, you are not doing a craft today.
I am not, because I finished the craft I was working on last week, and I haven't blocked it yet. And the craft that I need to work on is actually a commission, and while I have finished, it's a sweater, it's a pullover. So while I have finished the sleeves, I haven't started on the body yet.
And then talk about the tea.
And that means, I'm going to talk about tea. And that means I would have to count the stitches as I cast on. And it's something like 230 stitches to cast on. So I don't want to really be out of commission for that long. And I don't want to mess it up since it is a commission. So yes, I am not working on a craft this week, but if I get bored enough, my craft room is literally right behind us. I might scamper in there and grab like some origami paper or something. So I'm doing a little something, something.
Okay. And I just need to grab my instructions for my craft really quick.
So
let's see. Did anybody connect anywhere? Nothing in the Reddits. Nothing on the Twitters. Okay. So today, we are talking about the 4th book in the Meath Inc. series.
I haven't talked about the tea yet.
Oh, I thought you just did.
No. Okay, so the
tea
tea
we're doing... So tell us about the tea, my love.
So the tea we're doing is, the executive I work under was very kind this Christmas and gave me a little sampler pack from Tea Forte. Tea Forte is a very, very nice tea company. Like, all of their teas are really quite lovely. They don't really have any tea bags like you would get at the grocery store, like the Twinings tea bags. They use it's loose leaf tea, and they use little bags that have the tea in it. So you get multiple steeps out of it. So he gave me this little sampler pack for Christmas, which is pretty awesome sauce. So it's really just for 12-ounce cups. This is a 16-ounce teapot. So the tea I made is a little strong because I used 2 of the little guys. And we're doing the Bombay Chai, which is a black tea today. So I used my last 2 little packs of that, which has made the tea a little strong, but I like it. I hope Paul will like it too.
Have I Have I had any of the tea from this box yet?
No, I've been hoarding it.
That's fair.
Because it's quite nice.
It smells nice. I can feel the heat. Way too hot for my ickle little mouth.
I might actually get some almond milk to go with this because A, it's a little too hot, and B, it's a little too strong. So I think I might run upstairs in a little bit and get some milk.
Alrighty. Let's see. So we do have some viewers that are live with us. I think that's my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Elaine.
My mom thinks I'm special.
You are special, my love.
Okay, so we're talking about hit or myth, like my jokes. Yeah. So, another quick read this week.
I read it this morning.
I read it this morning as well, and last week after last week's stream. I had to read it twice because after I read it last Saturday...
You forgot about it.
Well, I read 2 other books in the meantime. I had to go back in and refresh myself. So, Myth is starting to get better.
It is. Now, I don't know if maybe it's because we're focusing less on some of the female characters, perhaps, but... Or maybe it's because Oz isn't here this time to say things that Skeeve doesn't understand.
Yeah.
But he's a much less annoying character in this book, and Tananda's not in it very much, so there's nothing really to complain about there. He sniffs something.
Yeah, Tananda and Chumley are kind of just the little sideliners, almost like those 2 Muppets, Waldorf and...
I don't know their names. They're always making bad jokes, though.
Yeah.
I love them.
So yeah, Tanda and Chumley for the second half of the book are kind of just, support. Which is fine. It's mainly a Skeeve-focused book, which I think was a really good choice on Robert Asprin's, because you can see how Skeeve has grown. So in previous books, he's the one who's confused, but then sometimes is able to pull out brilliant strategies, quote unquote. No, his strategies usually work, and like even when he talked to Ajax during the second book, that's something that came from his heart, and he was starting to grow confidence. This one we don't have Oz around, so it's all Skeeve, so he is kind of still building on that confidence, but we don't have any of that, like you said, the confusion, the still being a little childish, and he's really got to grow a bit. And one thing I find interesting is the way Robert Asprin did it with Oz just leaving and focusing primarily on Skeeve is a lot of Oz's tendencies that Robert Asprin would have written for certain situations. Instead, he has Skeeve handle. And it's done well. It's not like, Skeeve is being possessed by Oz, but what it does is it gives that growth where you can tell that Skeeve was Oz's apprentice. It's like, I see that.
Like the way he tries to, when he talks to Gimble, when he's going to leave, and he's like...
bribe money.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just going to take that.
Yeah. So, yeah, this book comes in 2 sections. So let's talk about the first section, the king going on vacation.
Rude.
So that Skeeve will have to marry Queen Hemlock.
Great name, by the way, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to need some milk.
I was about to ask you a question on how you felt about that section. How did you feel about that section? Silence.
I'm trying to phrase what I'm going to say. Okay. Well, it was such a quick read, So, I thought that it was... This whole book... I know you're asking me to talk about a specific section, but bear with me.
Go ahead and do the whole thing.
Bear with me for just a moment. What this whole book is basically leading up to is how and why Skeeve has left Claude to be in the bazaar on Deva, essentially. So it's an interesting lead up. And I thought it was interesting we get kind of a quote-unquote fake-out of Oz being taken away by his nephew.
Yeah. Which
is surprising. So for the first time, we have a Purvect who actually can do magic as far as Skeeve is concerned. And he's obviously old hat at it. He is also, even though he is Oz's nephew, he's over 300 years old.
Yeah.
So that I don't know if we've touched on that before, on the fact that Oz, being a demon, does not have the typical lifespan of what Skeeve is used to. So I think this might be the first time that we get to see that, yeah, there's going to be... He's older than he looks. And I thought that was kind of cool. So that we've got... Their apprenticeship, apparently, or the school that he goes to or whatever, lasts 300 years. So Rupert says.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he takes Oz away, trying to tell him, "Oh, but my father, your brother, is dying." And it's like, and Oz is like, "Psh, no way." And he's like, "Well, he got into a fight with my mom." And he's like, and that's kind of the first time we get any reference to, I guess, the female of his species, which I know later in the book we get to, like, they're, I can't remember if they're more physically imposing, but they're generally looked upon in a little bit more respect because they're strong-willed.
Yeah.
Let's go with strong-willed, shall we?
So, speaking of that, just a quick aside. I was on Reddit.
You speak loudly. I'm going to go get mine.
Okay. So I was on Reddit the other day, and someone posted a link about a shop that was being robbed at gunpoint from the security cam from above. But it was in Russia with, you know, an older lady behind the counter doing, you know, ringing up another older lady. And just, like, nobody was fazed. The guy goes in, like, holding the gun, and they just kind of ignore him. And then eventually a couple more customers come through, and a couple other old ladies. And one just, like, starts batting the guy with the gun, like, shooing him out of the store. And it was just business as usual. He didn't finish robbing or anything. But in the comments, some of the people who are from Russia were mentioning how apparently they have a whole kind of this respect for elders in a different way than America does, where, like, if you mess with some kid, it's fine, you're messing with kid, but if you mess with, like, a head of a family, you're messing with everyone. And that gives, like, especially some of the older women a lot of confidence because they have a lot of backing, so they just don't put up with stuff. And they are that imposing. And you were mentioning the Pervex there, and that just brought that up. I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of the same thing. Though I don't think Robert Asprin was thinking of them particularly.
Well, probably not. Robert Asprin probably still coming off the heels of the Cold War.
Yeah.
But anyway. Did you want any almond milk? You probably don't care for it because he's... You know how people are lactose intolerant? Paul is lactose tolerant.
I'm super tolerant.
In that he needs it to survive.
I know. It is my immortal elixir. If you've seen Forbidden Kingdom. Let's see, nothing in there yet. Okay.
Alright, that takes the edge off.
But yeah, so we got the idea of Rupert's father getting into a
fight
argument with
wife.
his with Rupert's mother, and
Oz going so, which I like. So it kind of leads me to talk about how Robert Asprin, even though there aren't many women prevalent in this particular book, they're still cast upon in a little bit more of a positive light.
Yeah.
So that's always nice. So anyway, the first half of the book. So I liked how, even though it's Skeeve on his own for the first time and not really knowing what to do, and really truly on his own. I mean, later, you know, he gets Hugh Bad Axe on his side, and of course Masha shows up and she assists him and that kind of stuff. But he really does fare well on his own.
Yeah.
And I liked that, but in that it wasn't as if what he was doing was not in character, or if all of a sudden he was capable of doing stuff he wasn't capable of doing before. No. You know, it all kind of led up to him. Yeah, we've always known he has a little bit of a temper, and he can draw a little bit more confidence from that temper. And then, of course, with what Oz has taught him, particularly about money, you know, the idea of him negotiating with Grimble for this, you know, 1,000 gold bribe, essentially, for him to essentially disappear. And then it doesn't really. So it's like... So I did like the first half of the book and the way everything was approached. I thought it all went well, and nothing seemed to, quote, jump the shark or seemed out of the ordinary or anything.
Yeah. It also, for me, helped push a little further just how good a character Hugh Bad Axe is. Mm-hmm. Like, you think at the beginning, or Skeeve thinks at the beginning, that Hugh is going to just basically be a brute.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not. He's pretty sharp-witted on, military things. Yeah, he might not be the sharpest Flintstone, but, I don't know. I was trying to come up with something.
Sharpest axe in the armory?
See, that would have worked fantastic.
It was on a silver platter.
I know.
Bad axe. He uses a double-edged axe, and he knows all about armories.
He may not be the sharpest warhammer, but...
This is what I live with. I sleep with this.
But when when it's something to do with protecting the kingdom, he's all there. Like, he knew almost immediately that Skeev was masquerading around as the king. What?
I love you.
Why? What?
I'm
what
just
happened?
touching you. Oh my god.
Oh, that was...
I'm just being affectionate.
I'm sorry, that was very similar to the... It's okay, love.
No, that was just me wanting to...
Okay, that's fine.
Anyway.
But yeah, so like he was right on it with knowing it was Skeev just by... He has a very distinctive walk.
Yeah, like...
But,
Paul likes leverage.
I do.
But yes, I did like that. I liked the idea about how, Hugh could tell it was him just because, well, he might sound and look like the king, but he's not acting or moving like the king. So I thought that was a good illustration of how aware that Hugh Badaxe is of his surroundings as a military individual. He always has to be aware of potential threats.
Yeah. But then he was also just willing to go with it.
Yeah, well, because they knew, like, both he and Grimble knew, and of course later on, Grimble knows what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, they both knew, well, yeah, the prince wasn't for this marriage at all. But this is...
King.
The king, excuse me. But this is my question. If this is such a huge event that is happening in the kingdom, like all the people, the subjects know, and everyone else in the castle seems to know, why is it that the court magician seems to have been left out of the loop? Because he had no idea there was a wedding going on.
Yeah, that's a pretty big plot hole.
Yeah, I was like, how is it if he's a member of the court, and he is a member of the court, and not only that, he's one of the main advisors to the king.
Who's basically added on as an advisor. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Because it's kind of a big deal. You know, the king marrying a not queen, but marrying a head of another village.
Unless Oz, or they told Oz to get it to Skeev, and Oz figured it was just not worth Skeev's time to care about.
Maybe.
But it's still no.
But then, Skeev asks the opinion of Grimble and Badaxe. What is their opinion of the queen? And they're talking about, various other things and facts, and he's like, I want your opinion. And the first thing Badaxe does is he's like, well, cold-blooded, maniacal, manipulative.
Yeah.
Like, these are just some of the adjectives I would use. That's not quite what he said. But, and it's just all of a sudden... Because he said, sleeping in separate quarters will be expected, and even then sleep lightly and with a weapon. So again, I have to say, if this is somebody who it was an expected threat,
right,
given how she rose to power, why was the court magician not informed?
Yeah, you would at least expect to ask the court magician if there was some sort of magical protection.
Right, which of course he provides, sort of, in the end, which I like that. Yeah,
no, that was a bit of quick thinking on Skeev's part.
That was a bit of very quick thinking.
When he sold his, what's the word for it?
Marketing rights?
Yeah.
Not marketing rights. No. Endorsement.
Endorsements of the rings that never come off. Just for free, just for some 2 rings. But
as of yet, in the book, at least I didn't notice it. Maybe you noticed it. And I skipped over it. Where was the count your fingers and toes and then family members and limbs and whatever? Because I didn't really get the feeling that particular DeVille was giving him a bad deal.
I mean...
Is he going to go back and bite him at some other point? I mean, I don't remember, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think that ever comes up again. It's just, you gave a free endorsement. But it's like if... you know, so, because at this point, Skeeve is getting pretty famous. And it's a bit like if a young Michael Jordan, when he was like starting to get to the height of his things, decided to give an endorsement for Nike for free. It'd be like, you could have made loads of money off of that.
True. That's true.
So, I mean, it's not so much that Skeeve got taken advantage of, it's just that the DeVille got a really good deal, in theory.
Yeah, because now he can boast, and especially since now Skeeve is living on the Bazaar.
Yeah.
So that leads us, of course, into the second half of the book. So this time you start.
Okay. What happened? Oh. So, Skeeve goes in to deal with Shyster and the two mob bodyguards, Nunzio and Guido.
Guido's his actual name, by the way.
Which I will mention, I did some research because Guido is an actual...
slang term.
Well, no, or an actual name that's been around for a while. But then around the late 70s, early 80s, it became a very harsh slang in America for Italian Americans. And of course, the mob is kind of based on that whole mob of Italian Americans. So it's questionable. This book did publish 73, so I don't know how...
I thought you said 83.
Did I say 83? Did I do that backwards?
Yeah, I think earlier today you said 83 when we were talking about it.
Yeah, 83.
Okay.
This book was published in 83, which would have been about the time when the term was starting to be used as a slang insult. But Guido doesn't actually do any of the stereotypical things that that term kind of implies. So, I don't know. We're going to play it as if it's innocent for now. And we will still use that name because it's still a name that people have. But I just wanted to... Was that a birdie that just flew by? Just wanted to bring it up just so that we're all clear. People of the future watching the stream, we know what's going on. We're not insulting. We're just kind of trying to be respectful while still talking about the book. Speaking of which, Guido is my favorite character. We don't get much of him in this book. Just a very little bit that we start to see. There's more going on up here with Guido than you would expect from a traditional fantasy thug.
Yeah, hired goon.
Yeah, hired goon is usually not someone who becomes character, whereas Guido and Nunzio become characters. And we'll see them more in future books, and they get absolutely fantastic. Favorite character, hands down, which we'll talk about in those later books. But yeah, I've lost my co-presenter. So yes, Skeeve brings them all to Deva to give them the chance. Yeah, that's birds out there. Good boy. Can you tilt the camera slightly this way, like a
Slightly which
centimeter, counterclockwise?
Towards you?
Yeah, get Punim in the screen. Whoop. Oh, that takes a little bit further. There we go. Whoop, that might be too far. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my goodness. You don't have to crowd this close to me. Even if I appreciate it.
Wow. So here's my finished thing.
Oh.
That's the back. There's the front. It's a little shawl. As I said, I haven't blocked it yet, so it's all weird looking. There's.
Yay, great job.
I'm sorry, I got bored, so I was like, I guess there's a small project I could work on.
Okay, I figured. So we also meet Don Bruce, who I also love. He's the mob's fairy godfather, which is just the best pun. And of course, he's super flamboyant in light purple, very excitable, but also very intimidating when he actually turns his intimidation on. And it's a bit like...
Well, we haven't really seen him turn his intimidation on yet, but
saw...
what we have seen is how other members of the mob treat him, and that is with wary respect.
Well, he also told Shyster to shut up, and that's when Skeeve realized, oh, he's not as just flighty as I thought. He might actually be someone to pay attention to. So we have that, and it reminds me as a slightly more extravagant version of Kyle from the Mercy Thompson series, who also, because Kyle puts on that whole...
Oh, I'm flamboyant and kind of flighty.
Yeah, I'm flamboyant and flighty, but he's like the best divorce attorney in the country. And he's like, he does it to get you off your guard or make you not expect that he's the absolute best attorney.
Yeah.
So this is slightly less capable? Not capable, but focused on as Kyle from Mercy Thompson is. And of course, Mercy Thompson is a much more serious book, whereas this is pure comedy.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if it's pure comedy, but it lends itself more to comedy, absolutely.
So yeah, then we just break off, or break the mob's attempts at setting up various mob deals in the area.
Yeah.
Which is again a little weird. Like, why have the DeVilles never had to deal with this before? I feel like that's at the very least, a DeVille-ish type of thing to do, which is to charge people for protection. But
yeah, I don't know. It struck me as strange as well that the DeVille didn't have any experience dealing with this kind of thing. It was also interesting because I don't think we had ever really gotten into it. The fact that hi, Katie. The fact that the DeVille, the Bizarra Deva has no real government.
Yeah.
They have no politics. They don't have any policemen or any way to...
And I wonder if that's mostly mostly because Robert Asprin was just writing one book, included the Deva as just a place to go, without, it was just like a set piece for the story. And then now that he actually has a series, it's like, well, now, wait a minute. How do I deal with this little set piece I just threw in there for a bit of fun?
I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that, there really isn't, because we haven't really heard about any sort of crime or anything in the Bazaar until, of course, the mob comes in.
We did have the one DeVille or Frumple, who was banned from Deva.
True. But he did it because he welched on a deal or something.
Because he welched on a deal. So there's the business associates or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
So there's some rules, but usually around, dealing in merchant-based things.
I have a kitty.
You do have a kitty. Is he in the way?
No, he's not in the way. But this will give some of you, if we have any, people watching us who when we say he's a big kitty, he's our house panther. Here's me for reference. I mean, he's longer than my femur. The femur bone is the longest bone in the human body. Now, at 5'6", I'm not very tall, but he's a big kitty.
He is a big kitty.
Ew, boy. But anyway.
Especially at night when you're trying to kick him out of your foot space.
Oh my gosh. This little thing will stretch out to his fullest extent, take up all of the foot space, and he's just dead weight, He doesn't get out of the way at all.
So yeah, did you... I don't know where we left off. I think you were talking about the second half?
We were talking about Don Bruce.
We were talking about Bruce.
Okay, so the second half. So the second half, it's kind of misleading to say the second half, because it's more like the second...
Third.
Fourth, even.
Yeah.
It takes place right at the end. But I liked it. I thought it was kind of fun. It was kind of reminiscent, not necessarily of Ocean's 11, but, they keep doing these little things that thwart the mob and everything, and then we've got the wrestling match in which,
oh my god, with the terrible twos.
The terrible twos, and then the tutors. I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's two tours is how it's said, but it's the tutors. You're just like, You and your puns. But I liked how they were... I thought it was interesting how easily they were able to get away with it. Like, because Skeev was essentially working both sides, if that makes any sense. You know, and it was interesting that, in my opinion, that the mob seemed to not catch on. That clearly someone's giving away all their secrets. Maybe it's this guy who's not actually part of the mob, but keeps hanging out with us. So it's another kind of little plot hole of how can you not see this coming?
But then again, like, and we get that scene where Don Boost is like, I know what the trouble with your situation is. Skeev. And Skeev sweats for a second until Don Boost is like, you're not utilizing Skeev. Which is the ending of the book where Don Boost decides to just have Skeev be in charge of the mob business, and the merchants are paying Skeev to keep the mob out of the Deva. So, yeah, all Skeev has to do is get enough money from the merchants to pay the mob, you know, even at a small loss, so that he, and then just do nothing. And then that way the mob thinks that they still have a presence, and the Deva thinks that the mob is gone. So it's a fun little scheme that Oz and Skeev took on. And then, of course, we have Oz at the end saying that Skeev is no longer his apprentice. They are now partners. And he actually shakes Skeev's hand. Yeah,
which he wouldn't do when
I don't shake princesses' hands.
Right, when they first got into this racket together. So yeah, it was neat to see how they had grown.
Yeah. And I also love
partnership.
How now Skeev has Masha as an apprentice, and
he's just as protective.
Yeah, the one lesson that he learned more than anything else from Oz is no one leans on your apprentice except for you.
That's right.
So Oz tried to lean on Masha, and Skeev was having none of it.
Yeah. Skeev was like, excuse you? She's my apprentice. If there's one thing you've taught me, Oz.
Yeah. And Oz turns to Chumley and it's like, well, now I believe he handled the situation all by himself.
Alright.
Yeah, so we don't really get much of Chumley or Tanda, which is fine. This was mainly a Skeev focused and a little bit of an Oz focus, like bringing it back to the primary team of these are the two people, or it's Skeev and his primary association, which is Oz, and their friendship is growing because Skeev is learning.
Yes.
And then, yeah, they're now in Bazaar. Let's see. Do you have a favorite quote from the beginning of the chapters? Did you happen to look at that?
Of course I looked at each quote. Did I really have a favorite?
I don't think this book... Like, this book had some okay ones that makes you kind of smile, but not really too many fantastic ones.
I really didn't have any that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Because we've, you know, we've had a few... I mean, I suppose I'm making this up as I go along. Indiana Jones. But that's only because I watched the Indiana Jones movies recently and they make me smile. Oh, okay. I do like this one for chapter 11. Tell you what, let me sweeten the deal a bit for you. Beelzebub.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that one since we're dealing with Devils.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you know, devils are basically the same thing as what Devils are. Interesting that they would use Beelzebub, though, as opposed to one of the other names, but okay.
Yeah. I don't know, I like the chapter 1.
Oops.
Oh.
There's something to be said for relatives. It has to be said because it's unprintable. A. Einstein. Okay, I do like that one. That one kind of makes me smile.
Everybody has some relatives that there's unprintable things about.
Oh, dear.
Obviously not my mom or dad.
I didn't notice this.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
I didn't notice that until now. Sorry, we're looking at the cover art and there's boobies.
It is not YouTube approved.
It's not YouTube approved. I just didn't notice that before. But anyway.
Yay. Yeah, you notice that we don't have the same style cover as the previous ones. I think this is the only myth book I have with Phil Foglio's art. The rest of them are all in the old style, so I don't know who that artist is. Not that I'm overly happy with that artist either, but I don't know. We've talked about that. We're not going to go into that again.
No. Although I will say, it was strange because when we first meet Masha again in this book, the description of what she's wearing actually matches the image that I had complained about when we first met up with Masha. Because in the first time we meet Masha, she's wearing a tent-like dress in the previous book. But in my digital version, in the Nook version that I have, the illustration was of her wearing a leopard print bikini. And when we see her in this book, when she arrives, she's wearing a leopard print bikini. So I'm like, okay. So I guess I can't really complain because he did get the illustration correct. It's just for the wrong book. But anyway.
I just had a thought about Masha, and now it is gone.
It'll return at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Great.
I'm the one that will suffer.
Yeah.
Did it have to do with her wanting to be an apprentice? Did it have to do with her being a mechanic? Oh, did it have to do with this really random bit? I'm sorry, I didn't understand this. When she and Tananda met up for the first time, she just straight up calls Tananda a slut, and Tananda calls her a useless mechanic or whatever, and then that's it. Then it's dropped, and the animosity is never repeated.
Right.
And they still talk to one another, like, later on in the book, and there doesn't seem to even be any...
Yeah, there was no development from that initial reaction to the final lane, or the next time they talk to each other, Masha's like, just out of curiosity, woman to woman, why is this? And Tananda's like, well, woman to woman, and then talks, and there is a little bit of cattiness in there, but not much, and way less than the initial. Now, because that scene stuck in my craw all week, until I just read it again this morning and some things clicked together. It's like, because I was trying to figure out where that animosity came from, but it was Masha who first saw Tananda on Skeeve's arm, and she was the first one to throw out an insult when, everybody started insulting each other randomly. And I think, because, first of all, why would Masha say something to someone she doesn't know? She wouldn't. But Tanda was the prize of the big game, but even then, that's not enough things. So I'm wondering if after Oz and Skeeve rolled through Jock, and Masha, started thinking about becoming Skeeve's apprentice, she probably started talking to Quigley, because he had deals with them and held on to Masha and, clearly knew Skeeve and Oz. And then they probably got started talking, and so a lot of it may have come from Quigley's point of view. Mm-hmm. And then soon, to the point that Quigley got left off on a dimension all by himself.
Because he slept with another girl.
Supposedly. But, did he tell Masha that that's the reason? I don't know. So there's that, and then as soon as Masha sees that Tanda has Skeeve on her arm, Skeeve, who Masha is now apprenticed to, it could have been the initial reaction. It's a very weird scene. And of course, soon as Masha insults Tananda, calling Masha a useless mechanic is kind of one of those throwaway, quick response insults. It's like, oh, you have loads of rings on you, you're a mechanic, bang. It's not a well thought out.
Well, but we know that that's a prickly subject for her. That's the whole reason she came to Skeeve to get apprenticeship, is because she didn't want to be a useless mechanic anymore. Yeah.
So that was a very, very strange scene. I don't really know why it was there, so that when we could continue the joke of Skeeve going into his room and there are demons and bad things happening in his room. And I don't know if it was done particularly well. It was weird. It could have been cut, I feel. But anyways, so there's that. Oh, I was saying, one of the things Masha says early on when she's talking to Skeeve is, you know, she's aware of her appearance and there's not many people who would, you know,
have her and whatnot.
Go
Except
after her.
for Hugh Badax, who is totally enamored with her, and I think it's really adorable.
It's adorable. Yeah, her relationship with Badax is the best. But that also got me thinking,
Do you want more tea?
because when we first meet Masha, yes please, on Jock, everybody is either extremely overweight or extremely underweight. And if that's what everybody is for, like, possibly generations, well, yeah, absolutely generations if it's getting that bad, then one would think that a lot of people would be, you know, have their perceptions of who they go after be one of these two things, you know, match the species as a whole. So I'm starting to think that Masha is not from Jock. I thought she was because, you know, she's described as a large woman and, like, take somebody, like, take a large person, you know, multiply them by 3 and that's how large she is, says a later book. But if she actually grew up on Jacques and she was one of the half of the population that was overweight, surely part of that population would be attracted to people of that physique because that is the physique.
But I thought she mentioned that she wasn't from Jacques because there aren't.
Did she?
Yeah, because there aren't any magicians on Jacques. Not that there isn't magic there to have, but because she got all of her trinkets at the bazaar and other places.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Let's see. Mom's craft for the day is drinking vanilla almond tea and making a black cat.
Osiris! She's trying to replace you.
Oh, don't be replaced.
Vanilla almond tea, that sounds nice. I put vanilla almond milk in my tea.
Now, granted, that was 30 minutes ago, but, you know. Osiris!
Aww.
But yeah, so Masha is another one of those good characters. I would say possibly my second favorite character. Second or third. Because later in later series, she's described as, you know, yes, she's a large woman, but her heart is even bigger. And she's a very caring person, and she is kind of the heart of the team. So it is, again, that one scene was just weird. It's weird.
It's a weird scene. But, you know, Robert Asprin's not all that great at writing women and how women interact because, well, he's a man. I mean, not to say that you wouldn't have a better job of it, but you're a little bit more...
and then I have the internet that I can actually
you've
do
got
better
the internet,
research.
But
yeah.
the majority of our friends are, in fact, female, so it wouldn't be... Because I am the same way, okay? Now, I'll read some books written by women, and they, like, will have a certain cattiness or something going on. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I wouldn't ever actually do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not the best example, you know. I mean, I had an older brother and an older sister, but my older sister couldn't really be described as a dainty princess or anything, and my brother was the first person who taught me how to fight, so... Yeah,
you wear the jeans of the relationship. I wear the skirt. Except we're both wearing jeans right now, but that's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, and I think Robert Asprin is getting better. We start adding more females, and they also start having more depth later on, so it's fine. Queen Hemlock was weird, but kind of understandable in the same way.
She's supposed to be weird. So, like, there was nothing really about her that screamed, oh, she's feminine. Now, when they first open the door and she's naked, you're kind of like, naked, but she's like, it's just so hot.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. She's from the north. She's from a mountainous region where it's almost always cooler and there's snow and whatnot. So, I'm not really surprised about that. Because, like, if my mom had her way, she would walk around with very little clothes on, too. She gets overheated as well. But what I mean, not to harp on the not to harp on the artwork, but she's described as being arrow thin, which we would say pencil thin.
Yeah.
You know, but no pencils in this area, but arrows, yeah. So she's really a very lithe, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the illustration shows her a little bit curvy.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like, well, whatever. But
yeah, she also, grew up in a very warrior-based society, and she made her way to the top. She's not the
clearly not
strongest.
Yeah,
she's not a fighter, but she made her way to the top via cunning and poison and all this stuff. And yeah, she doesn't really care so much about the feminine side of things.
Yeah,
and
so
I think that kind of works better, letting Robert Asprin explore a female character like that without it being sexualized.
Without it being weird. So yeah, I thought it was, I did like that. And I thought the stark contrast was interesting, how her lady-in-waiting and of course all of her soldiers are they're very buff, they're very rough and tumble. They're the type of people who you would expect to come from a mountainous region who mine things, because they do. That's why they're trying to do the agreement, is because there's a lot of gold in their land. Obviously they mine for the gold because their carriage is covered in gold.
Yeah.
So she obviously doesn't spend her time in the mines, but her handmaiden is very gruff and like big, and all of her soldiers are very big. And they even make note of the fact that the horses who are drawing the carriage are not exactly what you would call just horses meant to be pretty and draw carriages. They're clearly working horses that do something else when they're not doing this.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of fun, this idea that he's not technically marrying royalty. She's the queen, but she's more the dictator.
Yeah.
Like right now, I mean, sure, she can establish a monarchy now that she's secured one, essentially. Yeah. But obviously they're not there yet. They can make things very pretty and shiny with all the gold and whatnot, but beyond that.
Yeah, and of course her ambition is now growing.
She wants to take over the world. Yeah. Of course.
And combining with the kingdom that took out Big Julie's army.
Yes, except
as much as, we did start complaining about that. Oh my. Oh, or I've done something.
What did you do?
I don't know. I broke everything. What?
His needle work has betrayed him. Betrayed me.
But yeah, so as much as we complained about that book when we did the review, I don't know, for some reason, every time I think back nostalgic to the second book, I still like that scenario of Skeeve basically taking on the army. I think the basic plot is good. It just fell in some of the particulars. So it's really good in memory, but yeah. Let's see, is there anything else about this book? We did our favorite quotes. Did we do... one thing that we were talking about is favorite bit of magic. And one thing that strikes me is, in a lot of these books, Skeeve really doesn't know much magic. He knows how to levitate, and he knows how to change his appearance, and that's kind of it. Oh, he can also make fire. But he doesn't use it near as much as Dresden does.
True.
But, yeah, that's pretty much all he does. I'm struggling to remember, like, in future books, any other magic he may have done. Which is a little bit strange. But he's always able to pull out, these weird... get through these situations. And yeah, I know it's not magic, but those rings are my little favorite bit of magic trickery.
But it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I do like that. It's just kind of, these are rings that once you put them on, they fit to your hand, so they're never going to come off. Why? Well, because it's annoying when you lose your ring. Like, okay. Like, I can kind of see how that would be useful. I can also kind of see how it's annoying. Speaking as someone who takes my rings off to do things like go rock climbing and shower and stuff like that. But I thought it was because, as Skeeve has said many times in his book, he might be slow uptake, but he's not stupid.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first instance where, like Oz was saying, this is kind of the first instance where I believe it.
Yes.
This is the first time we see a true little bit of cleverness that he's pulled out.
Yeah, that doesn't come out from panic.
Right.
But actually, from anger, but
Right, but actually sitting there going, yes, this could work if they never come off, and I tell them that there's a curse or a spell on them that says if one of them dies, the other will die. Then we can make it work. Much to the piss offedness of both the king and queen, which I thought was also very funny, because then he's like, now they're united against a common enemy, which is now me. So maybe they'll learn to actually work together at some point.
Maybe.
And
then Bad Axe and Grimble, who are in on the plan at that point.
Yeah.
Well, some parts of the plan at that point. Said that they don't think a retainer should speak to their king and queen like that, because Skeeve basically goes off on Roderick. A little bit on Hemlock, but mostly on Roderick.
Well, yeah, and I'm not going to be sympathetic to Roderick. No. He kind of deserved that, because he was like, I'm going to go take a vacation, quote unquote.
So that my magician disguised as me is the one who marries
this queen who might actually possibly kill me. Again, why I didn't mention this possibility to my court magician, who's saved my bony rump on more than one occasion, I will never know as a reader, But yeah, so I like after that, and Grimble and Bad Axe are like, though a retainer shouldn't talk like that, Skeeve kind of deflates. He knows what he's doing, and he's like, I actually agree with you. Yeah. That's why I'm submitting my resignation. Yep, it's like, that's why I'm gonna just leave. Bye!
So even though he can get all up and attitude-y, so what he's got an attitude? There's a commercial online that uses that song, and I hear it every day. So what I got an attitude? But
back to the point.
Skeeve had an attitude. And, get all uppity, but then he can also, quickly come back down when it's, when his point is made. He doesn't ramble on. Unlike me, he doesn't ramble on and on and on.
Or unlike Oz. Oz tends to ramble on as well. And Oz makes note of the fact that, even though he is the teacher and Skeeve is the apprentice, that doesn't mean he hasn't learned from Skeeve.
Yeah.
Which he says, and I think it's really, it's a really good point, and it's nice to point out the character flaw, because I'm not going to say Oz is overpowered or anything like that, but
without any powers.
Yeah, but also he seems to get out of situations and seems to be able to fix things without much trouble. But it's nice to see that he can admit that he's not terribly good at getting people to do what he wants because they respect him. He preys upon the fact that Purvex have a reputation. And he can usually get his way by being intimidating. Yeah.
Something the Dimension worked very hard at to get that reputation.
Exactly. But we don't know that yet.
Oh, do we not?
No.
Okay. I thought that was said in, second or third book. Oh, well.
Not that I recall.
Okay.
But anyway.
You didn't hear that from me, no.
But anyway, so it's nice when he says, you can get people to do what you want because you can gain their respect and, they want to do what you want them to do. Which, again, to draw on Mercy Thompson, kind of reminds me of the idea of the Omega Wolves.
Yeah.
It's even though to think of Skeeve as being a werewolf is just really distasteful, in my opinion, because I don't really like him that way. If he was to be a werewolf, I would think that, he would probably be an Omega.
I could see an Omega with him.
Yeah, I can see an Omega, because he is able to, not necessarily through making people feel uncomfortable, but he is able to just convince people that this is what you want to do, and this is the way you want to do it. Because I said so. Let's see. Knit 4, purl 2, knit 2.
Oh, I see.
3 times.
Okay.
Knit 4.
I feel like I had a thought. but they always go away.
Pearl 2. Well, I'm focusing on my past.
But yeah, Oz definitely has a lot of character development in this series, which is another... There is a reason why we are doing this series. Not because it's the best series ever, but because there is some quality things to see in there, and it is enjoyable. Some of the jokes, some of the puns, which are really good.
Some of them.
But yeah, we do need to... We say this every time, and we make so many references to the Mercy Thompson series. We need to add that in, but we need to finish some of these series that we're doing first. But yeah, we were just talking today about how we really need to get Mercy Thompson because our viewers have no idea what we're talking about.
It's a good series. You will like.
Yes. Okay, so how are we doing? Ooh. The boo-doo-boo.
So in case anyone is curious, because I ran out of the room and said I was bored, so I started doing things. So I am now working on a headband. Paul and I are going to be going skiing soon. So I'm working on this cable knit headband to wear to keep my little ears warm. And at some point I'm going to work on a hat for Paul, so I'll get into this. So anyway, so this is a Cascade 220 Sport cabled headband, and it is a free pattern download. And I believe I found it on Ravelry.com. So if anyone is interested in making the same thing as me, and I'm using the same sport weight wool that I got from Knit Picks to make the pullover. I think I've worn at least once. It's too small. Like I really got to fess up to the fact that pullover is just too small for my shoulders and for my bust. So I'm gonna see if my cousin wants it. She's a little bit narrower than I am, but still basically looks exactly like me, just with longer hair and sea green eyes. And then I'm just gonna make another one. So you might see that in the coming months. I will probably use this same color because I love it so much, which means I'm going to have to buy more.
Of course.
Before I do that, I am still working on a purple one for my friend. So I should really start that. But it's much easier to count out casting on 22 than it is to count out casting on 200 and whatever. So,
okay.
Anyhoozle.
Any last thoughts about this book?
By far, this has been my best book, my favorite book in the series.
In the Myth series, yeah.
In the Myth series, it's a quick read. Obviously, if I can read it in a morning, then that makes it a very quick read. He's much faster at reading than I am, and it's almost like a heist. Book. Like I love the Ocean's 11 remake, not the original. I've seen the original. It's boring. But the remake is a lot of fun. So I love that. So it was fun to see it going together from Skeeve's perspective, because the books are all written from first perspective of Skeeve, right? So in the other books, we've only been privy to the schemes through Skeeve, and sometimes he's not privy to the entirety of the scheme because it's all coming from Oz, or it's coming from Tanando, or it's coming a little bit from everybody. But in this book, we got to see exactly how everything happened. We got to see exactly where the trip-ups were. We got to see exactly how he fixed said trip-ups and how he came to the conclusion of them, and I really liked that. So... And
he did still hide some information from us, like what his actual plan was in situations, but it all...
Right, but it was done better. I felt like the flow of this particular book was better than the others. Now, whether that was because Skeeve was the one in the driver's seat as opposed to following somebody, maybe that's what it is. I we'll see in further books, but yeah, I liked this one. It was a far more enjoyable read than the other ones. The other ones I kind of felt like I was slogging through, but this one I was pleased to read.
And in this one we have a pseudo cliffhanger with the door in the house they now have.
Oh, the door, yes. Because Oz is saying, we got a great deal. And Skeeve is like, say that again. And he's like, we gotta go. And then he shows him the door, and it's like, what's behind this door? Now, speaking honestly, I'm sure Paul has read me a few of the books of the series, not the entirety of it. I don't know. I don't recall if we ever actually end up going through this door or not.
Oh, don't you?
I don't. So I do not recall what's on the other side, and I don't recall if we ever even find out.
Oh, I thought we found out next book, but apparently not. Probably not. No. It takes... I'm in a hoodie now.
Hoodie time.
I'm trying to figure out what the next book is, because they're not labeled on the books, the order, and
does this book say?
They sometimes, like if we have one with a later publishing date, they add
hit or miss, yeah.
more. So the next one, no. Oh, okay. So the next one is Mything Persons. Let me just grab that really quick. Okay.
And then of course he has a gin now.
He does have a gin now.
Named Calvin.
Calvin the gin.
With a K and an A.
So, hold on. So, Mything Persons is the next one in this series.
And we've got this illustrator as opposed to...
back to this illustrator again. Does it?
He looks so weird. I don't like how this illustrator has Skeeve, because sometimes it seems like he's trying to make him pretty, and other times he's just this dork. I mean,
by Walter Velez.
For all I complain about Phil Foglio and all of his, I'm going to say, interpretations of certain things, I do like the way he usually draws Skeeve, which is young and kind of bumbling, but in a more realistic way, I guess. This one, he looks like he's wearing lip gloss. Okay?
Yeah.
It looks like he's got lip gloss on, and he's making this weird O face, and I don't. It's creepy.
Anyway,
this is the face of somebody who you're like, well, he's young, he's not really very bright, but he's doing the best he can. This is a please punch me face. Okay, this is a very punchable face. This one is a little bit more, well, we'll cross that bridge when we've got the planks.
Yeah. So I hate to say it, but yeah, Mything Persons is like my second least favorite myth book.
Oh, joy!
So great to look forward to. But we'll do that at some point. Next week, we are doing... Oh, before we start talking about next week, what we're supposed to do is say, post in the Reddit at r/SpinnerYarnLive or Twitter at #YarnAdall with how far you got in your project today. And...
I got 4 rows in.
I got a row. This is going to be a long one because I keep talking and not crafting.
Yeah. I'll probably work on this one. I probably might finish this tomorrow because it's a long weekend for us because Monday.
You always have something different going on for every episode. I'm the one who ties the episodes together. Mm-hmm. Because I'm slow.
I'm faster, yeah.
So yeah, next week we're going to do Good Omens.
No.
What's the...
No. If we're doing a random one next week, then we are doing...
It was the one with the baby.
Dirty Job.
Dirty Job.
We're doing Christopher Moore's Dirty Job. I'm excited. This will be the second Christopher Moore book that I have read. I truly enjoyed Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Companion. If you're really Christian, then maybe you don't want to read this book. But it's very silly. But so I'm excited to read something new by Christopher Moore, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to this. This will probably be my Monday project.
Alrighty. So yes, come back next week after reading this book. After a review second. Okay, and we will talk about that. As of this point, I have not read the book yet.
So this will actually be a completely new book even for Paul!
I don't think we've had that yet.
Well, it depends on what you mean by completely new book. Like with...
You read the ancillary series before we decided to review it.
Yeah. But it was kind of in the vein of wanting it to be good enough to review. But yeah, this is one where, as of the episode before, I have not actually read it. Yeah. So that's gonna be new and exciting.
So this will be fun. I'm hoping for a laugh out loud, like I usually do with Christopher Moore. So
okay.
Find out. All right, the fire is dying, so I need to
You need to fix that.
Yep.
Okay, I don't see anything new in the Reddits or the Twitters. So, thank you for joining us, and until next time. Though that's the ending of my gameplay channel, not my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Read!
Or die. No.